crushing defeat Putin had anticipated. How can we make sense of how much has changed so quickly?
This, Don, is sort of one of those events that I think we will look back in history the way we look at the fall of the Berlin Wall, maybe 9/11. In some ways, it is really comparable to the fall of the Berlin Wall in that it is beginning to alter the geopolitics, not just of Europe, but of the world. You see how countries like Germany are changing 40, 50-year-old foreign policies and becoming much more aware of the danger they face, the need to project military power. Europe is coming together in a way that it never has. The Chinese are trying to figure out whether they need to reevaluate the way in which they have been pursuing an alliance or quasi-alliance with Russia. Um, India is having a debate about whether it is too over-reliant on Russian technology. So everywhere you're seeing a kind of transformation, but at the center of it is this grinding, merciless battle that is, the Ukrainian people are showing such extraordinary bravery with regard to the Ukrainian army is showing such extraordinary bravery. So I think things that operate at two levels: one, the level of the military conflict; the other at the level of geopolitics.
Yeah. This is happening at a time, Fareed, when gas prices are already high, and is always a political issue. How long will this impact Americans who are already feeling these high prices? And we should say, gas prices are high everywhere. Joe Biden is not the president of the world. They're high in other countries, and they were going up before this. But how long do you think that Americans can, hold out on these higher gas prices?
Well, first of all, I think Americans can hold out a lot longer than people think. I mean, America is a very patient country when the stakes are high, when Americans understand what is at stake, and I think they do in this case. I mean, think about it. The United States engaged in a Cold War with the Soviet Union for 45 years. The United States has staying power, but it's important to point out the United States is now in a very different position than it was in the 1970s oil crisis. America is the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. So if the Biden administration moves aggressively to increase supply, we can actually manage to do this in a way that is to the advantage of the United States and the Western world, and the American consumer will not have to pay an overly high price. Russia exports about 5 billion barrels of crude oil on the world markets. If you increase American supply, Canadian supply, Venezuelan supply, and supply coming out of the Persian Gulf, broadly speaking, that's Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar for natural gas. Some of it will be symbolic, some of it will be real. But the point is, there is a lot of supply in the world that could come forward and substitute for the Russian supply. Much of it, by the way, cleaner. One of the things I would say to all those environmentalists out there who worry, and they are right to worry, the truth of the matter is, for the last year or two, the world has been burning way too much coal. We have had a 10, 15, 20% increase in burning coal around the world because it's cheap. So if you don't drive the price of oil down by increasing supply, all that's going to happen is when oil is expensive, countries like India and China and Indonesia, they burn coal, which is the worst thing for the environment. So let's get our priorities straight. In order to defeat Putin, in order to help the American consumer, the number one priority should be increase the supply of petrol, gasoline, crude oil around the world.
Fareed, there are multiple sources telling CNN that the Biden administration was completely caught off guard today by the Polish offer to provide the U.S. with a fleet of used MiG-29 fighter jets, which could then be given to Ukraine. I mean, this is something the Ukrainian president has been pleading for. Why is it so complicated?
I think that part of it was that the Poles did not consult with the U.S. This is all happening in real time in a battlefield. We're covering it minute to minute as we should, but perhaps there could have been better coordination on this. But I do think the most important thing we should all be trying to figure out, Washington should be trying to figure out, is how can you get the Ukrainians air power to break up these Russian convoys? If the Polish MiG idea is not a good one, let's come up with a better one. Because what you do have is a golden opportunity here. The Russians have these long convoys. They do not seem to be at this point logistically skilled in moving them fast. That makes them sitting targets. So you can use aircraft, you can use drones, you can also use anti-tank javelins. A number of times, what has happened with these convoys is they've been broken up by somebody on a motorcycle carrying a javelin. I may be wrong about this. We should check the exact range, but I think some of these anti-tank weapons have like 2-3 kilometer range. In other words, the person on the motorcycle can be very far back and can destroy a tank. And you destroy one of the things that we have to apply pressure on is the more pressure there is placed on the Russian army, the lower the morale gets. You see, what happens in these situations when armies get bogged down, when they're losing people, you lose morale. If 1 out of every 5 Russian tanks is getting blown up, the next convoy of tanks, the Russian soldiers, they're not so enthusiastic, right? They're thinking to themselves, they're just human beings. They're thinking, if I've got a 1 in 5 chance of getting destroyed, maybe I'm not as enthusiastic as I was. So part of the effort here has to be to keep the pressure on, to break the morale of the Russians, and to bust these convoys.
I want to, Fareed, I don't know if you got to listen to Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. He's on my program just a short time ago. You may have been getting ready.
I did, yes.
Did you hear what he said about he believes that the U.S. is wrong when it comes to the airplanes and turning Poland down? He also believes that Putin has not been held accountable. He doesn't believe that he will escalate to the use of nuclear weapons, and he also believes that a no-fly zone. And I'm paraphrasing here, but if you've heard him, what's your response to his response?
Look, I think the United States should lean forward more, should be more aggressive. I think they're debating in each of these cases in Washington what is the most effective way to do what needs to be done. Those planes are Russian planes. I mean, by which I mean Russian manufactured. Maybe there are better ideas to do it. I get the sense the administration is trying as hard as it can to supply the Ukrainian military with all the best weapons they can get. On the no-fly zone, I still do think that something that we developed during the Cold War, which was the idea of nuclear deterrence, that you were going to be very wary of engaging directly in a military contest with a country that has those many nuclear weapons, remains a good idea. If you have American planes shooting down Russian planes, and one side feels they're losing, and they start ratcheting up, there is a final ratcheting point at which you could imagine the use of nuclear weapons. And so far, we have always believed that that was a bridge too far. The only person threatening the use of nuclear weapons right now has been Vladimir Putin. He's done it twice to my recollection. Some of the things he's done in the last 2 weeks have not been the most rational and calculating. So I would at least be careful about this. At this point, I think there are better ways to supply the Ukrainian military, to break those convoys, to try to make sure that Ukraine has all the help it can get, and to ratchet up the costs for Russia. Remember, this is a petro stick. If we can more effectively get at Russian oil, we're getting at the revenues that are funding this military. So for all those reasons, I still remain respectfully wary of the idea of direct military engagement between the United States and Russia. Remember, both countries have enough nuclear weapons to blow the entire world up several times. That should give us all some pause and some caution, I think.
Well said, Zakaria. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.